Awesome. All right. So where we're going to pick up tonight is chapter 11, A Vision for You. And we're on page 151. And some of you guys know as we approach these later chapters, I love doing a bit of a deep dive into, the title of the chapter. You know, and I'm like, oh, we're going to talk about the title for a little bit. And I want to talk about this title of chapter 11, A Vision for You, because I want to talk about what this vision is. So I know some of you guys were like on the ball and we've already opened up to page 151, but let's take a big old big book bounce. Some of you guys know I like to bounce. Let's bounce over to page 14 and let's see what this vision is. So page 14. Woo, we're writing Bill's story. Gosh, my book. And we're going to go page 14. And it's going to be, I got to count 1, 2, 3, 4, the fifth paragraph. So not the very bottom paragraph where it says my friend had emphasized, but go one paragraph up. And where we are in page 14 is Bill Wilson has taken the practical and tangible actions that later became our 12 steps. And he had a revolutionary, powerful, what is known as a white light spiritual awakening, a spiritual awakening of the luminous variety. He had a powerful experience. And it was so powerful. He's like, have I lost my mind? And Dr. Silkworth's like, dude, whatever you got, it's better than what you had. So you better run with that. But when it says, well, I lay in the hospital, the thought came to mind. And you can make a little note in your book, if you haven't already, that this is Bill's vision. The thought came to mind that there were thousands of hopeless, some of you guys already have hopeless underlined, hopeless alcoholics who might be glad to have what had been so freely given me. Perhaps I could help some of them. They in turn might work with others. So that idea that Bill Wilson experienced this freedom as the result of taking a course of actions that later became our 12 steps. Perhaps he could help others and they in turn could work with others. That is the vision, Bill Wilson's vision, and his vision is being shared with us. And that's the thrust or the idea behind the chapter, A Vision for You. I've been given directions on how to work with others, but how can I create that fellowship around me? How can I create that fellowship I crave? How can I work with others and yeah, create a fellowship around me? So that's the context. That's kind of what we're talking about here. So back to page 151, A Vision for You. Rock and roll. So and if you guys are new to this study or kind of like new to studying the big book or new to sobriety in general, we're going to do some step one review. Listen, I'll take any and every opportunity to do review and talk about step one or talk about, some of the steps we've already done as we go through. So let's talk about it. It says for most normal folks. So this is non-alcoholics. For most non-alcoholics, regular people, drinking means conviviality. Conviviality is that social friendliness and warmth, companionship, having that friendship, and colorful imagination. It means release from care, boredom, and worry. It is joyous intimacy with friends, that feeling of closeness. That's what it's talking about. And a feeling that life is good. Now, yeah, conviviality, good time, festivity, good company. That's what we're talking about. And that's normal people. Like there are probably normal people. I'm sorry, Ben, I'm going to mention it. That are having a couple drinks, watching the Olympics, and they're chanting for their country, and they're like, "Come on, Simone, make the triple axel." It's not an axel. That's figure skating. I was wrong before. I'm wrong now. They're having a good time watching the sports, Olympics. But I don't know about you. Now, this does not make me an alcoholic or this does not make me an addict, but you guys let me know if this is your experience. See, for somebody like me, when I took a drink, when I took a drug, what happened to me was a little bit deeper than conviviality. It was a little bit more than, oh boy, I can't wait to watch the water polo. I can't wait. And to be fair, I'll get into water polo. You put a sport in front of me and I'll get excited. Yay, sports. But I don't know about you. What happened for me is I would take a drink and I found a solution to life. You know what I'm saying? I took a drink and the screaming from the depth of my soul finally began to quiet. See, I took a drug. I took a hit of crack because I'm a lady, and there was a calm and a numb that came over me. See, I start to drink and use, and I get an answer to all my problems. See, this does not make me an addict. But it's helpful to know that non-alcoholics, they'll take a drink or two to unwind. They'll take a drink or two to socialize. But you see, just I wanted to point out for me the solution, what I was after was perhaps a little bit deeper than just conviviality. I wasn't showing up to the liquor store first thing in the morning and going like, listen, I'm after some conviviality. No, I'm after the solution. I'm after making the screaming stop. And then, I end up pissing my pants behind the dumpster. Some people were like, which dumpster? I'm like, many. I'm a well-traveled woman. Many a dumpster. All right. And so that's what we were, at least for me, that's what I was after. But it says, but not so with us in those last days of heavy drinking. Was this my experience? The old pleasures were gone. They were but memories. Never could we recapture the great moments of the past. And I describe that great moment of the past so often as this, that 3-drink glow. That feeling 3 drinks in, or that feeling where you take that drink and that feeling. Yeah. That feeling where it's like I'm wearing my shoulders as earrings and they begin to fall from me. Yeah. That's what I'm after. So never could I recapture the great moments of the past. There was an insistent yearning to enjoy life as we once did, and an heartbreaking obsession. Now, when we talk about the obsession, we're talking about the mental obsession. And the mental, yeah, Scott put in the chat, I was so convivial that I'd boil owls. Now, I think we're going to get, if I recall correctly, we're going to get there in Dr. Bob's Nightmare. Yeah, we are on page 151. And being boiled as an owl is to be incredibly intoxicated, is what that means. So by the way, if you put things in the chat, I will do my best to respond to them. And if you're like, Paige, you're being too on topic, you're too focused, you're going through this work too efficiently, which would be a miracle, feel free to put things in the chat and I will go on a tangent. Rock and roll. All right. So when we talk about that heartbreaking obsession, you can make a little note in your book, The Mental Obsession. That's what we're talking about. And the mental obsession is the thing that happens to me when I am as sober as I am today, but my illness is untreated. And the mental obsession, man, this is the thing that happens to me. I'll be a day sober, a couple days sober, a week sober, a month sober, several months sober, and I get this thought. You guys can let me know if you've ever had a thought like this. It's a thought that looks something like, this time will be different. Nobody will ever know. My problem was I was drinking at the Winter Olympics, but this is the Summer Olympics. It can't hurt me this time. I was stupid as soon as I said it, but there was no way I was going to not say it. It looks like, my problem was drinking with Canadians, but I'm outside of Chicago. There's no alcoholics in Chicago. It'll be different this time. So here's how. It looks like, man, if you're feeling the way that I was feeling, you'd have to drink too. For me, it looks like I'm going to kill myself anyway, so why don't I get drunk? It looks like I got to just get it out of my system. I got to go on a big bender and then I'll have a good surrender. Then I'll finally be able to do this AA thing or the CA thing or this DAA thing. It looks like if you're feeling the way that I was feeling, you'd have to get drunk too. You'd have to get high too. It looks like I'm going to relapse anyway. So what's the point? That is the mental obsession. And when it talks about this insistent yearning to enjoy life as we once did, and a heartbreaking obsession that some new miracle of control would enable us to do it. When we talk about control, or more accurately, a lack of control, what we're talking about is the physical allergy. See, I don't know about you, but what happens for somebody like me is I take a drink or I take a drug and I'll get that 3-drink glow, if only for a moment. And you know what happens? It's like a little switch that goes off in the back of my head and it tells me more. And the more that I drink and use, the more that I need to drink and use. See, I take that first drink and it demands a second. And that second drink insists on four. And that fourth drink will not relent until I've had eight. And my eighth drink is screaming at me to have 16, and so on and so forth. See, once I start, I can't control the amount that I take. And I come to, and I know that beyond a shadow of a doubt. And I say, that's it. I'm never going to do it again. But a day, a week, a month later, so I have this obsession, this heartbreaking obsession that there would be some new miracle of control. You know, what if I just stick to beer and wine? What if I just, man, what if I drank water in between? What if what if I did a little bit of cocaine? Because that was me. What if I did a little bit of cocaine when I started to get drunk to sober me up? I can control it this time, so here's how. And that is what it means to have alcoholism. Or addiction, whatever brings you to this all-inclusive study, that idea that once I start, I can't control the amount that I take. And that idea that when I've said I'm never going to do it again, I have a thought again and again and again that takes me back time and time again to that inevitable first drink. Does that make sense? Because it doesn't for non-alcoholics. They're like, just stop. And I'm like, I tried. And so it goes on to say there was always one more attempt and one more failure. And in that, we can reference that cycle of alcoholism that we see, and we don't have to go there, but we see on the doctor's opinion, page XXVIII. I say that I'm never going to do it again, and I'm thrust into sobriety. And I get a thought that tells me this time will be different. I take that drink, I take that drug, and off I go, and I set off the allergy, and it takes me. And I go on a spree and I burn my life to the ground, and I come to in the embers of my life and I say, I'm never going to do it again. And I'm thrust into sobriety. But I got a thought that tells me this time will be different. And I take that drink, I take that drug, the allergy takes me, and I burn it to the ground, and I sit in the embers of my life and I say, I'm never going to do it again. There was always one more attempt and one more failure. When I talk about step one is a deep and powerful concession deep within myself that I will relapse. That for me is a step one experience. Not that I'm never going to drink again, not that I can never drink again, but the reality for me is that I can never ever safely drink or use any mind-altering substance again, and I will do it again. That for me is that step one experience. There was always one more attempt and one more failure. There was nothing that I could put between me and the first drink or me and the first drug that would work in a permanent way. I could get some time in between, but it wouldn't work in a permanent way. So it says the less people tolerated us, the more, because I don't know about you, me having the inability to control the amount that I take, I always like to make the joke, I slept with your husband, I stole your car, and I peed on your carpet. That does not ingratiate itself to conviviality and companionship. That ingratiates itself to very firm boundaries, stay out of my life page. You know what I'm saying? So, but also, what drives or what burns relationships is those promises that I make and I mean with everything that is in me. I don't want to do it again. And I do it again. And that for them is a betrayal of their trust, or feels like for them a betrayal of their trust. And neither one of us knows that I'm up against an illness over which I could not possibly have any power. I don't understand the inevitability of the first drink or the first drug. You know what I'm saying? When I say I never want to do it again, gosh darn it, I mean it. I mean it. I don't want to do it again. And yet I do it again. So the less people tolerated us, the more we withdrew from society, from life itself. And throughout this book, a lot in the chapter Two Wives, a little bit in the family afterward, and even in There Is a Solution, it spoke about how we tend to isolate ourselves from others. And we have these like walls that I put and barriers that I put between me and my loved ones. I begin to withdraw from life, or from society, from life itself. As we became subjects of capital K, capital A, King Alcohol. And I point out it's capitalized because when we have capitalizations, those are synonyms for things that we could use as God or did use as God. What was God in my life? King Alcohol. It says shivering denizens of his mad realm. And a denizen, yes, it would be an inhabitant, just a citizen, like this little, like imagine. Now, I didn't watch the I always make this joke. I didn't watch the 8th season of Game of Thrones, but I watched some Game of Thrones, right? And so the denizens would be those poor peasants, you know, those serfs, those farm workers that had no rights, no say, no power. That's me. And who is at the helm? Who is running the kingdom? I like to think it's me. I like to think Queen Page about her business. But the reality is, who is running my life? King Alcohol. King Alcohol. And I want you to know that is the Mad King, you know, like in Game of Thrones, we got a Joffrey at the helm. You know, we got somebody that's gone mad. You know, we've got a ruler that is destining me to drink again, to use again, and it destroys my life. And I can't, I am absolutely powerless as a peasant in those days would be to stop the whims of a mad king or a powerful ruler. There is nothing that I can do. I am this shivering denizen, this fearful peasant having no power, no control of his mad realm, right? That insanity that I go back to it again and again and again, despite it burning my life to the ground again and again and again. And I love this. It says that, and I don't love experiencing it, but I love the visceral language, the chilling vapor that is loneliness settled down. It thickened, ever becoming blacker. You know, that deep fog, you know, that fog so deep it turns on the streetlights. That, but instead of that, like vapor that's just like condensation, it is the vapor of loneliness. And I like, and some of you guys know, and have had to sit through a couple of them, I like doing big book bounce arounds. And I like to do a big book bounce around on the topic of loneliness, because that loneliness is a thread that's tied throughout this book. And one of the things I always want to point out is, for me, loneliness has nothing to do with physical proximity to other human beings. Nothing to do with that. See, I don't know about you, but here's my experience. I felt lonely in a stadium. We could be in Paris at the Olympics. I could be in Stade Francais and feel utterly and hopelessly alone and lonely. And you see, I don't know about you, but I've come to 12-step rooms and felt absolutely, utterly alone. And you see, I don't know about you, but I've felt absolutely, utterly alone and lonely in the middle of a relationship. And I don't know about you, but I have felt absolutely, utterly lonely and alone in the middle of an act of intimacy. And so for me, that loneliness has nothing to do with physical separation between another human being. That loneliness has everything to do with a sense of separateness from God. And as I do and I'm not doing the big book bounce around today, but as I go through, because some of you guys are like, focus, Paige, focus. Could we have some thread of continuity? Maybe. We'll try. But as I go through that big book bounce around, what we see is in the 5th step promises, that feeling of loneliness disappears. I can be alone at perfect peace and ease is the quote. You know what I mean? And what's happened between step 1, where I'm riddled with loneliness, right? I'm a shivering denizen. King Alcohol is running my life and ruining my life, and I'm filled with loneliness. And yes, Bill, he talks about no words can tell of the loneliness and despair I found in that bitter morass of self-pity. He also, we're on page 151. We didn't get too far. And he also talks about loneliness on page 1, you know, where he treats his loneliness with alcohol. I was very lonely and again turned to alcohol is the quote. But at page 5, what happens between, or not page 5, at step 5 in this 5th step promises. What happened? Well, I took some action to clear away the stuff between me and God, the stuff in me, the resentments, the fears, the guilt, the shame, the selfishness, the self-centeredness. I've begun to clear that away, and now I can be alone at perfect peace and ease. So that chilling vapor that is loneliness, that dissipates as I begin to take the actions of these 12 steps and build and cultivate a relationship with God, higher power, creator, spirit of the universe. So it says some of us, not anyone that would come to the New Light Big Book study, none of you guys, but some of us sought out sordid places. And some of you guys are like, this Big Book study is a sordid place, but some of us sought out sordid places, hoping to find understanding, companionship, and approval. Momentarily we did. Then would come oblivion and the awful awakening to face the hideous four horsemen. And what we're referencing is the four horsemen of the apocalypse, the end of the world. And I don't know about you, but these four horsemen were the end of my personal world, that coming to the end of myself. So these are the four horsemen: terror. And terror is a little bit louder than fear. That I've referenced it a number of times, that screaming, that is that terror, that screaming within myself, man, that's that terror. Bewilderment is that confusion. And it's not that like, how did I get here? Man, it's that deep confusion. I'm ruining my life and I want to stop, but I cannot. How did I get here? That is bewilderment. And then it says, frustration. I'm going to come back to that. And despair. Despair is that hopelessness, that coming to the end of myself. I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that there is nothing that I got that I can put between me and that first drink. There's nothing I got that I can put between me and me. That is despair. Now, frustration. Some of you guys, oh, wonderful. Sorry, there's an announcement in the chat. I'm like, oh, we got it. Kathy's doing a talk soon. I know, she's like, don't do it. Don't put it in the chat. No, nobody look. I ruined it. I didn't put it in the chat. We'll write inventory on it. It'll be fine. Yeah. But frustration. Some of you guys know, I believe it was last week when we were talking about the greatest enemies of alcoholics, as it was written in Two Employers, were jealousy, envy, frustration, and fear. How often do I want to minimize a resentment and say, no, it's not a resentment. I'm just a little frustrated. Now, if Rob still has a copy of this, he might put it in the chat. See, what I did is I had enough sponsees that were like trying to play, like do everything to avoid writing inventory, that little dance. It's also like, listen, I don't make my sponsees look up words in the dictionary. I'll give them the dictionary definition. But for some reason, when I suggest that we take it through the columns, they pulled out a thesaurus, and they're like, "No, it's not a resentment. I'm just a little frustrated. No, it's not a resentment. I'm just a little bewildered." They'll just find all the words to not call it a resentment. So what I did was I came up with frustration columns. Now, these are 4 columns that we can write on frustration. Now, some of you might be like, those are a little familiar. They look eerily similar to the resentment columns, but don't you worry. I will assure you they are completely different inventory, and I would never make you write resentment inventory on a frustration. But like, what is a frustration? It's that thing that's nagging at me. No, Paige, it's not a big deal. I don't got to write inventory. No, I don't got to run it through the columns, but it's eating away at me all day, every day. It's the thing that I think about when I wake up. It's that thing I think about when I go to sleep. It's that thing I ruminate on as I'm driving, just a little frustrated and, not that big a deal. So frustration. And it says, unhappy drinkers who read this page will understand. And I was working with a sponsee a number of years ago, and we were going through a vision for you. And I was kind of explaining, I love that. Love you, Bill. Glad you're here. We took it through. But I was working with a sponsee, and I was explaining, I have a twin brother, and he does. Now, I do think he's got some spiritual malady. That's not mine to say, but he does not seem to have alcoholism. He does not seem to have the illness that I have. He does not seem to have the allergy. He does not seem to have the obsession. And when it says unhappy drinkers who read this page will understand, I was talking with my sponsor and we got curious. So I took a picture of this page and I sent it to my brother. And I was like, what on this page do you relate to? Because I was thinking he would talk about maybe a little conviviality, maybe some joyous intimacy. And he's like, I guess it's kind of social. That was it. That was it. He doesn't get an answer. He doesn't get a solution for life, but he also doesn't know what it's like to have king alcohol, ruining my life. He's just like, yeah, it's kind of social, you know? So that's what it's about. Unhappy drinkers who read this page will understand. And as we read this page, do I understand? Do I relate to this? Because I'll tell you, my brother sure as heck doesn't. But if you do, welcome. We have some actions that we might have to take. Glad you're here. All right, it says, now and then, a serious drinker being dry at the moment says, I don't miss it at all. Feel better, work better, having a better time. I'm happy to be here. Happy to be sober. I'll take 24 and pass it on. Happy to be here. Happy to be sober. I don't know if you notice how white those knuckles are. You know what I'm saying? Right? Like that was me. Yeah, I just love sobriety. I'm having a great time, right? And it says, as ex-problem drinkers, we smile. Now we're on page 152. We made it a page, guys. We're doing great. As ex-problem drinkers, we smile at such a sally. Now, there's a couple definitions of sally. One is like we smile at like, such a joke. But I looked up Sally in my 1930s dictionary, because again, I'm really fun at parties. I just, I won't bring it out. I don't travel with it, but I would if I could. I'll bring out my dictionary and look things up. And in my 1930s dictionary, one of the definitions of sally was a sudden rushing forth. Oh, perfect. Yeah, a sally, an outburst, quick-witted response. But the definition that I have is a sudden rushing forth of troops. Like a almost like a military thing. Now, Rob's is probably a little more like accurate, but I love that idea of like, no, I'm happy to be here, happy to be sober. I'm just not gonna drink today. It's the best defense that I've got. It's like me throwing everything that I've got at that first drink. And we know that military force is insufficient. That military force has got nothing against capital K, capital A, king alcohol. It's this, just happy to be sober. I got nothing. That's not enough for an alcoholic of my type. And it says, we know our friend is like a boy whistling in the dark to keep up his spirits. That like, whew, you're just afraid and you're just trying to, I have that vision of like a little boy walking through like a graveyard at night. Nothing's gonna hurt me, it's fine. But a whistle does nothing to keep the enemy at bay. And keep in mind, king alcohol is right there. And I love this. It says, he fools himself inwardly. So deep down, we know he would give anything to take half a dozen. That's 6. I always like to point out those numbers because half a dozen doesn't register in my brain. 6? Yeah, 6-pack? Heck yeah. To get half a dozen, 6 drinks and get away with them. And this is important. He will presently try the old game again. See, this is a step 1 idea. I will drink again. I will drink again. That is step 1. I will relapse. I will smoke crack again. I will act out again and again and again. He will try the old game again. He will drink again. And it says, for he isn't happy about his sobriety. And what I always want to emphasize there is that emotional sobriety is a requirement for sobriety. Because I don't know about you, when I kind of got sober, I kind of thought when I heard emotional sobriety, I'm like, I don't know what that is. I'm sure that doesn't apply to me. And you'd hear speakers and people talk about emotional sobriety. And I'm like, oh no, that's for the like 12-step nerds. Turns out I became one. That's me. But emotional sobriety is a minimum requirement for somebody like me? What is the solution that we have in Alcoholics Anonymous, Cocaine Anonymous? What is the solution that we have in 12 Step? The solution is a spiritual awakening. Nothing less than a spiritual awakening, and I will drink again. Nothing less than a spiritual awakening, and I will use again. And for somebody like me, nothing less than a spiritual awakening, and I will kill myself. That is my reality. Emotional sobriety is not for the nerds, although I have become one of the nerds. It is a bare minimum for somebody like me. I need emotional sobriety. And again, it's not extracurriculars. It's not like, okay, how do I get emotional sobriety? It is not that you can if you feel called, please do, but you can go to emotional sobriety workshops. But the purpose of the 12 Steps is to bring about emotional sobriety. That's the purpose. That's the goal. That's what we're here for, Yeah. So I just want to emphasize that. That is what we're here to do. That's what I'm here to do. You guys do what you want, but I'm going to peer pressure you. But I hear it's what all the cool kids are doing, and that people won't like you and want to date you if you don't do it. And I hear people that don't work the 12 Steps and have a spiritual awakening eat their boogers. Just full on middle school, elementary school peer pressure. Somebody that might get somebody, and I'll use it. Oh gosh. All right. So it says he cannot picture life without alcohol. Someday he will be unable to imagine life either with alcohol or without it. That place of, I know I need to stay sober, but I can't stay sober. I know I can't drink, but I can't stay sober. You know what I'm saying? Yes. And Bill Wilson, he's got that emotional sobriety essay. Beautiful. Like, listen, if I start talking about that, I'm gonna go on a tangent. So focus. I say focus as I know there's a tangent coming. It's happening. It's in the works. That's how we do. But it says someday he will be unable to imagine life either with alcohol or without it. I can't stay sober, but I need to stay sober. I have to stay sober, but I can't stay sober. You know what I'm saying? That hopeless dilemma, that coming to the end of myself. And then it says he will know loneliness, such as few do. Right? And at that point, we're not talking about the friends or the spouses that have fallen away. We're talking about that deep inner loneliness, that deep inner disconnect from a power greater than myself. And it says he will be at the jumping off place. He will wish for the end. And often when I talk about, when I do my big book bounce around, I'm going to do it really quickly because I said I felt the tangent coming, and it's coming. So on page 59, right before we have a look at what our 12 steps are, it's that first full paragraph on 59. It says half measures availed us nothing, which is rude because I really think I should at least get a quarter for half work. You know what I'm saying? I'm not expecting half for half, but I think I should get a quarter. Half measured availed us nothing. By the way, half measures availed us nothing means anything less than a spiritual experience. I will drink again. Doing some of this, I will drink again. Not doing all of this as a way of life, I will drink again. That's what that means. And it said we stood at the turning point. This is the turning point for our entire life. And it says we asked. I always point out that is a prayer. Anytime in this book we see we asked, there's a prayer. It's a sneaky little prayer and how it works. I love that. I love it. When I first saw that for the first time, I'm like, oh, I was just jazzercised. We asked his protection and care with complete abandon. This is the turning point. This is the jumping off place. And how I often describe it, I have this metaphor. And it's part of why I have this metaphor is it just feels really visceral. It's this idea of like alcoholism as a tiger. You know what I mean? And I am alone in the jungle and I am running from this thing. Now that's a tiger. And some of you guys know that my legs don't work so well. So I'm not going anywhere quickly. But even if I had normal people legs, I am not outrunning a tiger. I can't Usain Bolt, Olympics reference, although I do know he's retired. Man, I wish I could remember the name of that lady sprinter who's really fast. I can't, but that lady, yeah. Somebody said it, and I can't read lips that well, but I know you know. I just don't. Now, so I can't outrun that tiger. And so what's happening to me is I'm trying to outrun that tiger that is alcoholism, and it's taking swipes at me. I'm just gonna go to meetings, and it takes a swipe at me, and off I go and I drink again. I'm just gonna work on my physical fitness. That tiger takes a swipe at me, and I drink again. You know what I'm saying? And I'm running and I'm running, and I can see that I'm coming to the end, and I can see that there is a cliff. There is the edge of the cliff, and I get myself to the edge of the cliff, and the inevitable relapse that is that tiger is coming, and it's barreling down on me. And in that moment, I have a choice, and that choice is to take that leap of faith. Now, I want you to know, if you're new here and if you've not taken the actions of the 12 steps, or maybe if you have and you haven't for a while, and you can feel the tiger that is untreated alcoholism, or this untreated illness barreling down on you. What I want you to know is that there is another type of fog. Now, it is not the chilling vapor that is loneliness. There is this cloud of unknowing that we don't know what's on the other side. But on the other side, beneath this cloud, this fog, this mist, now not the mist of loneliness, but the mist of unknowing, there are voices, and they are our voices, those of us who have recovered, friendly voices saying, jump, it's safe, do it, I promise you will be caught, jump, we're here for you, let us help you. Take that leap of faith. And you've got to take that leap. But I promise you, is who's going to catch me? And I have this other big book bounce around where I talk about it's God's hands. God's hands. We realize, page 100, the things that happened to us when we put ourselves in God's hands were better than anything we could have imagined. How do I get from the edge of the cliff with the tiger barreling down on me? I take that leap of faith. And who catches me? God. God is who catches me. Right? I don't know. There's that cloud of unknowing, but I got to take that leap of faith. And so that's the metaphor that I have, right? That jumping off place. Back on 152, it says, we have shown how we got out from under. And how we got out from under is the 12 steps. How we got freedom is the 12 steps to produce a spiritual awakening. That I need to continue to grow. I just always like to emphasize this. I couldn't stay well on one drink. I can't stay well on one experience. That's my experience. And it says, but yes, but am I consigned, like, will I be stuck with? Consigned to a life where I shall be stupid. Absolutely. Sorry, that was not about, sorry. That was bad timing on that. Somebody put something in the chat, and a private message, and I responded to it where it's like, am I going to be stupid? Absolutely. Well, no, we are not tearing anyone down. Absolutely. We are lifting people up. No. So sorry, ADHD, I don't have it. It's weird you think I do. Alrighty. But am I consigned to a life where I shall be stupid, boring, and glum, like some righteous people I see? Well, if you hang out with me, stupid, yes, because some of the things I do are a little, I don't mean it in a self-deprecating way. I mean it in more of a like, girl, what are you on about sort of way. But boring and glum, heck no glumness over here. We're not a glum lot. And we're, listen, not righteous over here. Don't you worry. And it says, I know I must get along without liquor, but how can I? Have you a sufficient substitute? And that's what I need. I need something that is a sufficient substitute. I reference that 3-drink glow. I reference that answer, that solution to life, that warm feeling, or that numb feeling that comes over. I mentioned that because I need that. I need a substitute for that. Nothing less than a substitute for that, and I am going to relapse. I'm going to drink again. I'm going to use again. So how do I have that substitute? Now, this next line might be a little, hold on with me, bear with me. So it asks the question, it poses an answer, but I want to give the context in which we find this answer. So it says, yes, there is a substitute, and it is vastly more than that. So more than a substitute, more than, just relief. Man, there is a profound release and a profound freedom that is on offer. Now, bear with me. It says it is a fellowship in Alcoholics Anonymous. But when we see that, you might be like, oh, sweet, just don't drink and go to meetings. Because I mean, listen, if you're like me, you're looking for every angle. No, 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 no. The context of the chapter of Vision for You. Again, Bill Wilson's vision. He has this powerful spiritual awakening. He's alone in the town's hospital and he sees, maybe I can help others, and they in turn might work with them. I will not deny the power of meetings. It doesn't matter if you're working steps, you go to a meeting and you feel better. Now, that is true. It is not going to keep me sober forever if I have this illness. You know what I'm saying? But the fellowship in Alcoholics Anonymous that this book is referencing is the fellowship that happens when I carry this message to others and they begin to work with others and they begin to work with others. Do you know what I'm saying? This is not a simple, just go to meetings fellowship, but I will say it does help. It does help going to meetings. It's nice to connect with people. It's great to go for Denny's after. Do people still do that? I don't know. I don't get out much. It's great to go to Denny's after. It will not keep somebody like me sober. Oh, in Canada, we have a place called Humpty's. I don't know if we still have them, but we used to. It was like a Denny's, but I'm not going to say better because that's subjective. And like, it's greasy diner food. Oh, I went to a Waffle House while I was out here. I went to a Waffle House in Toledo. They put onions in my food and I vomited. Waffle House. Yeah, I know. Yeah. Woo! So just again, we cannot stay sober on Waffle House alone. Oh gosh, I didn't plan on telling that story, but I just figured I started. You guys needed the info. Yeah. A little pit stop in Ohio. I was well acquainted with that one. So it is a fellowship in Alcoholics Anonymous. And it says, there you will find release from care, boredom, and worry. Your imagination will be fired. Like that, what that means is like the antithesis, the opposite of dull and boring and glum. That imagination will be fired. You know, when you get like an exciting idea or you're passionate about something, excited about something, that's what it's like for the imagination to be fired. And it's like, it says life will mean something at last. Life will mean something at last. See, I don't know about you, but on page 52, it spoke about the bedevilments and a feeling of uselessness. I don't know about you, but my life had a sense of meaninglessness. But there is a sense of purpose and direction that I get when I work with others. There is a sense of purpose and direction that I get sharing this way of life with others. Man, it is amazing and it is incredible. And also, I didn't say this. These are promises. These are promises. Yeah, I was gonna like emphasize it in another way, but I'm like, I don't know. I don't got anything else. These are promises. This is promised to us. And this is what an incredible promise. The most satisfactory years of your existence lie ahead. The best years of my life are ahead of me. Nobody thought that when they came to 12 step. You know what I mean? No one shows up to the doors of AA or CA or DAA and think, why, yes, the most satisfactory years of my existence lie ahead. Heck, hanging out in church basements or community halls or Zoom screens. You know, when I first got here, it was like, oh no, is that what this is gonna be? I don't believe you. The most satisfactory and let's be real, there are some hard times in life, in sobriety, but that is a promise. There is a joy and a peace that can pervade and transcend. My brain wants to say vicissitudes because that's how my brain works. What I mean is the deepest troubles, the depth of our grief, the depth of our suffering, which is not to say that we, by the way, I want to be very clear as I'm talking about this promise, that if you are in the midst of grief and suffering, you're not doing anything wrong. That is because life happens. You know what I mean? Grief and loss and pain and tragedy are a part of life, and we are not exempt from life. But I will tell you that my experience is there is a peace that is deeper. There is a purpose that is deeper. And man, listen, even vomiting after Waffle House is like something is a life beyond my wildest dreams. Oh, by the way, context, We don't have Waffle House in Canada. No worries, glad you're here. Some of you guys have been like, vomiting after Waffle House? I mean, that was just a Tuesday, back in my drinking days. We don't have Waffle House. So never in my life would I have experienced that. And yet, you know what I mean? And yet in the depths of the vomiting after Waffle House is not real pain. It was fine. But the real pain, the loss, the grief, the suffering, there is meaning and purpose throughout all of it that I could not have imagined when I got here. So thus we find the fellowship, and so will you. Again, this paragraph is a promise. And again, my life having meaning, the most satisfactory years of my existence lying ahead. I don't know about you, that doesn't happen for me simply going to meetings. I do need to go to meetings. It's important to be a member, for me to be a member of a home group, to participate. And because I don't have still suffering addicts and alcoholics walking through my basement, I got to go find them, and a good place to find them is meetings. But these happen as I carry this message to others who are hurting and suffering. So how is this to come about, you ask? Where am I to find these people? Now, 2024, I was about to say 2025. I struggle with what year it is. But 2024, meetings. That's a good place to find them. People who at least have some level of willingness to stay sober. This desire to stay sober. You know what I mean? Yeah. They might not be jazzed to do a 4th step, but you know what I mean? That's a good place to find them. Good place to find people to work with. But we're gonna talk at a deeper level, or at a slightly different level, because again, this book was published, and I might get a copy of this book and not know a single other sober or recovered individual. And where would I find them, right? And it says you are going to meet these new alcoholic friends in your own community. Near you, alcoholics are dying helplessly, like people in a sinking ship. And I love that. On page 17 of our book, what did it talk about? Right at the start of there is a solution. And I'll tie it in because I can see we're going there. So we're going there. Page 17. It talks about we are average Americans, right? And it goes on to say, we are like the passengers of a great liner the moment after rescue from shipwreck, right? It's now the shipwreck metaphor isn't carried all the way through. It's kind of, we go 17 and then 152, although we do have the drowning reed at the top of 26. Oh, yeah, 20, not 26, 27, top of page 27. But we see that drowning metaphor, page 17, top of 27. So if you live in a large place, there are hundreds, high and low, rich and poor. These are future fellows of Alcoholics Anonymous. Among them, you will make lifelong friends. Oh, sorry, I bounced back to page 152 and didn't tell people that's what I was doing. I'm really bad for that. We're back on 152. I mean, come along if you like. Stay on 17 if you want. There's no pressure. I like bouncing. You go where you want. It's all good. 152. All right. Among them, you will make lifelong friends. You will be bound to them with new and wonderful ties. And what we saw on page 17 is that we're not tied together solely based on our common problem. We are tied together based on our common problem, but also our common solution, the spiritual awakening, and our common program of action, these 12 steps. So we're bound together with new and wonderful ties, for you escape disaster together. The same disaster is our illness. And we can simply put our physical allergy and our mental obsession. That is the disaster that we escape together. And you will commence shoulder to shoulder your common journey. What is our common journey? These 12 steps as a way of life. That is our common journey. And I love that it is shoulder to shoulder. And when I work with sponsees, although I am seated at all times and they're sometimes standing, I do say we are shoulder to shoulder in this thing. I'm not better than you because I've been doing this longer. We are shoulder to shoulder. We are working this together. Our common journey. That's the humility, you know? And it says, then you will know what it means to give of yourself that others may survive and rediscover life. The type of giving that I'm giving, that we're giving, it's not, thank goodness, it's not that codependent putting out their fires. It's offering these 12 steps as a way of life. And you see, when I do this, when I offer these 12 steps as a way of life, and I help people take this course of action, man, it is a replenishing journey. When I try to fix, manage, and control you, girl, I am exhausted. I can't even fix, manage, and control me. I'm unmanageable. You know what I'm saying? And it says, you will then learn, or you will learn the full meaning of love thy neighbor as thyself, what it means to love others as we love ourselves. And I don't really have time for this tangent, but I'm going on it anyways. But it's this idea, like, there's in modern culture, there's this idea of like, you've got to love yourself first. You got to love yourself first. And I'm not saying that's wrong. I don't want to be like, that's wrong, they're doing it wrong. But what I will tell you is that is not my experience. I genuinely could not love myself first. And I really mean that. I've shared this before, but I have a friend, I was on the phone with her just a couple years ago, and she said, Paige, when I met you, you were the most negative and self-deprecating person I had ever met. I was just filled with a level of self-hatred that would suck the energy out of the room. Actually, I was telling Rob before the meeting, I used to tell people in casual conversation, they would shoot horses like me. You know what I mean? I would casually say that. And people like, could you not? You know, like, that's who I was. But what I had to do, here's my experience. It does not have to be yours. But what happened is I worked these 12 steps and I began to help others. And I began to deepen and awaken to this unconditional love that I had for you and God. And as a result of that, I began to see that some of that love might be available to me too. Do you know what I mean? Oh, that's nice. Thank you. Somebody said, I think you're lovely. Oh, thank you. By the way, I used to not even be able to take a compliment. I'd be like, no, I suck. Oh, I'm a bucket of suck. And I probably say a swear word in there too, but I'm not. less bucket of suck, more trying to be buckets of helpful. That's what I'm here for, as opposed to buckets of vicissitude. Anyway, focus, Paige. It may seem incredible that these men are to become happy, respected, and useful once more. And incredible is this level of impossibility. So incredible in our modern context usually means incredibly positive. But in the 1930s, it was more of a like Incredible Hulk, or just incredible as in like, who would have thought that could even be possible? Like, it may seem impossible that these people, drunks like me, addicts like me, are to become happy, respected, and useful once more. Again, that idea of useful. And that doesn't necessarily mean societally useful, although that happens for most of us. That useful to other people who have suffered the way that I have suffered, useful to God. That's who I need to be useful to. How can they rise out of such misery, bad repute, and hopelessness? Hopelessness. There's that hopelessness again. We can underline that. Now, misery, bad repute, hopelessness. I feel like I had the T-shirt on that. You know what I mean? Which I could make as I make little T-shirt designs and little sticker designs. Misery manufacturing, you know what I mean? Stuff like that. So it says the practical answer is that since these things have happened among us, they can happen with you. That idea that I mean this, there's nothing special about me. I am not, and I'm not being self-deprecating. There are things that I have, skills and things, but I'm not special. I am not special. I am just a run-of-the-mill, silly little drunk and crackhead. You know what I mean? Just run-of-the-mill, fall down failure of a drunk. And if this thing can happen for me, it can happen for you. And I mean that. I'm not special. And it says, and that ability. Oh, thank you, Rob. And I think he means it in like, you're special to us. It's like, you're important to us, not you're special to us, and we'll put you on the short bus. Some people are not happy with that. I can make that joke. I'm disabled. I just wanted to contact in case you, no, I'm making fun of me with my disability. No one else's. Anywho, I still have a learning disability. I know that's surprising. Uh, Actually, it's not surprising. Some of you guys like, could you finish a sentence? No, no, I often can't. So it says, should you wish them above all else? Should I want more than anything else this miracle to happen for the lives of others? We are sure they will come. That's a promise. And it says, the age of miracles is still with us. Our own recovery proves that. My own recovery is evidence of the power of God working in the lives of others. And it is important to remember in 2024, man, in the fourth to the second edition, it says a wholesale miracle has taken place. Like miracles, getting them at Costco size miracles. But if you're here today and you are a sober, contented alcoholic, or a sober, contented addict, or a sober, contented compulsive gambler, compulsive overeater, compulsive whatever brings you to this study, what I want you to know is that you are nothing less than a miracle. And we get to be a small link in the chain of miracles that get to happen through us. And we'll talk about that link in the chain next week. So I'll stop the recording and we'll unmute and say a prayer. Thanks for letting me do this. Thanks for letting me say words.